Hi everyone, this is analysis of CET, Maharashtra MBA CET slot 3 overall, and it's a first slot in 10th March. So after the first and second slot, the paper, everybody was sure what is going to be a paper pattern, and the paper pattern was same as the slot 1 and slot 2, that is total 200 questions, and they divide into 4 sections: logical reasoning 75 questions, abstract 25 questions, maths, that is quantitative aptitude 50 questions, verbal ability 50 questions. So overall 200 questions, and as per the as same as the first slot, second slot, time duration was 2 hours 30 minutes, 5 options for each question, and you can actually switch between any section. You can start with any section, or in fact the questions were numbered from 1 to 200, so you can attempt any question number at any point of time. And CD is famous for no negative marking. So that overall paper pattern everybody is aware of, because it is the same as first slot and second slot. Though the overall paper pattern is same as first and second slot, if you look at inside each section, the situation was not the same. So there were a lot of changes within the section. So let's do a detailed analysis of each section. So let me go ahead. So the first section was logical reasoning part. Now, in a logical reasoning part, if you look at the areas on which the questions were asked, I just show you. See, look at the analytical puzzles. There were total 6 sets. Now see, CET when where the old pattern was there, the analytical puzzles questions may be difficult, but in that the number of questions for each set was 5 to 6 questions. Okay, but if you look at here, the number of questions are here for per set was 3, maximum there were 4 questions. So total there were 6 sets, but 3 sets were of 4 questions each, and 3 sets were of 3 questions each. So some of these sets I found that they were not that easy. So I'm going to work for so much time to get that 3 marks. Instead of that, I would have invested that time to solve the individual question in the logical reasoning area. So some may not have preferred to solve all the analytical puzzle sets. Instead of that, as the number of questions per set were lesser, in that duration, skipping any difficult set, you could have probably attended individual questions from the analytical reasoning area in a lesser time. So that could have been the strategy here. So here, if you look at, there were there were 6 sets. From the first slot and second slot also we got the idea. So what I particularly found that if you look at the individual questions were at the start, and all set based questions were towards the end. So all these 22 questions, these 6 sets question, all 22 questions, plus there is one more set on cubes was asked. Those all questions were towards end. So probably students were aware of that. Okay, these set based questions are at the end. They could have started with the set based question at the start of the section if they want to attempt these analytical puzzles at the start. So out of 6 sets, if I do an overall analysis, we can say that out of 6, I'll say 3 were doable. Okay, the other 3 you could have done, but the amount of time required to solve those questions was a little bit higher. So one set was very easy. Probably that set you could have solved in within 2 or 3 minutes also. So that set, I'm talking particularly for analytical puzzles. So you could have attempted that set. Now coming back to the other areas of analytical reasoning. Okay, what you'll realize, actually this verbal reasoning I should have been kept as a separate area, but I've included in that column only. Okay, now look at the regular areas: direction sense, blood relations, coding, decoding, number series, all those regular areas the questions were asked. Okay, now here also look at the questions, the weather surprise, the question on the clocks. Okay, so clocks question they ask in the quant area also, clock question they ask in the logic area also. Okay, there were questions on a cube pending. Okay, so painting of a cube. Now last year, the first time they asked the questions on a cube, and that is also in the last slot. So this year we trained the students for cubes, but we realized that okay, last year the question asked was only on the cube with a painted with a single color. So we predicted that they might have, as they have asked the questions on cubes, we asked the students that they might ask the questions cube painted with the 3 colors, where opposite faces are painted with the same color. So we have discussed those kind of questions in the class. So students who have done that topic properly, you could have easily answered those questions, and those it's a set of 3 questions, you could have easily answered in 3 minutes. Fine. Venn diagram questions, there were individual questions on Venn diagram, not set based questions. But I find that if you practice Venn diagram well, the amount of information given was lot. So again, to solve that question, the time required is higher because there's more amount of information given. Otherwise, the questions on Venn diagrams were easy. There was no issue in that. Input output questions were present, but the only issue was they have given a one input and all steps. You have to crack the logic. On that logic, there was just one question asked. So there were 3 questions on input output, but what we realized, there were 2 questions based on the same set, same information, but those 2 questions were not together. So let's say, for example, one was question number 33, so other was question number 50, based on the same data. Fine. Number series questions were there, fine, but as they were scattered, one could not get exact number of questions on number series. But some of the questions were not that easy, because one pattern of what we saw, that students reported that they're asking the questions in a pair. Instead of here, what will be the next number in the series, they're asking what will be the next 2 numbers in the series. So pair of numbers was a question mark. So that kind of questions were asked in number series. So overall, a section was, I'll say, easy to moderate, but some of the analytical puzzle sets were difficult. So as I said, there was a one set on blood relation. So some students feel that many students tried that set, but they feel that some information is missing in that set. Some said, no, we got the answer. Okay. This 3x3 arrangement was a very different kind of set for the students. There was a one student set based on comparison, which was not easy because there were too many variables. In fact, that was probably categorized as a DI kind of question rather than a logic kind of question, because a lot of numbers and the equations were involved in that set. Okay. So if I talk about in the terms of number of attempts, so probably a 50-55 could be a good attempt. But for that 50-55, the time required may exceed 65 to 70 minutes. Okay. So the key was to attempt the individual question as fast as possible. So attempt the easiest one first, whichever the time consuming question, even a question like a Venn diagram, though you could have solved, probably a lot of more amount of data was there, you could have skipped those questions. Fine. So that's about your logical reasoning section. Let's move to the next section, that is quantitative ability section. Okay. Now in quantitative ability, now students may not give a very positive feedback about this section, because for the first 2 slots we found that the students reported the level of difficulty was not that high. Here also the level of difficulty was not very high, but the level of difficulty was extreme. So some questions were easy that you don't need to put your pen on the paper also, but some questions might require some investment of 4 to 5 minutes to solve those questions. So if you look at I just give you the if you look at the topics, almost all the topics they asked the questions, but the real highlight was the numbers area, and that was supposed to be, because last year also in almost every slot there were a higher number of questions on numbers. In fact, we took one session on decoding the numbers, we discussed one workshop also. Whatever types of questions we discussed in that, the similar kind of questions were asked in the actual exam also, but those were all typical your LCM application, HCF applications. There are some questions based on the divisibility rules. Those kind of questions were asked. But out of this 16, look at 11 questions have categorized easy, but look at these 3 questions were really difficult. Probably if you have solved those kind of questions, then only you could have able to answer the questions. So some question based on factors, reminders. Okay. So the strategy was, in numbers you could have easily attempted these 11 questions. Remaining difficult or wherever you find the time investment is more, you could have skipped those questions. Rest, if you look at the overall structure of this area, the only concern was these heights and distances questions. Okay. Now heights and distances question, actually you need to know little bit knowledge of trigo to solve that. But if you know the basics of your 30, 60, 90 triangle and 45, 45, 90 triangle, with that also you could have solved these heights and distances question. Fine. There were 3 questions asked, but all 3 questions were similar in nature. The all three questions were similar in nature. The language was changed and just the amount of data, numbers what I've given were changed. They were similar in nature. Clocks question based on angles, when the two hands will be opposed in a particular time slot. Those kind of questions asking clocks. Okay. In calendar, two questions are, one question was easy, one question is difficult. I will say that was not so straightforward, because for that how leap years definition was required. Okay, means how you define a leap year. If you know, for if a year is a century year, then how the leap year is decided for a century. If that in the concept you know, then you could have solved that question. So I'll put it that as a slightly difficult one. Fine. So rest of the areas were all regular types of question. So if you look at overall structure, the strategy is very clear. Look at, out of 50 questions, around 31 questions were of easy. 13 questions were of moderate difficulty level, in the terms of moderate difficulty level, but probably solving time will be higher. So a lot of students reported that they are taking they took a lot of more time to solve this con section. So the better strategy could have been, which were the easier questions, you attempt those. In fact, I will say go one step ahead. Whichever questions were of 1 line, 2 lines, you solve those questions only. Whichever are more than 2 lines, if you would have skipped those questions, you would have completed around 33 questions within a limited time period. Fine. So that is a analysis of con area. See, there was one question on probability, was very difficult. It's a very different, I'll not say it's a different concept, but it was not a kind of question that you can actually work there and you can get the answers quickly. Even the question asked on geometry mentioned, just one question was asked. I'm counting heights and distances, not in geometry. That written as a separate question. But one geometry question was again a little bit calculation, and even after doing the calculation, that answer was approximate answer. Then they were not exact answer in the option. So students were more confused even after getting the answers there also. Next area is the abstract reasoning. Now, in abstract reasoning, if you look at the types of questions, they were more similar to your typical CD type questions. So look at here. This is 5-figure series. 9 question is a typical CD type. 5-figure series to find a missing figure, a CD type. 4-figure analogy, CD type. Odd man out, CD type. Okay. So basically, if you look at this top 4 rows, 9 and 2, 11, 11 and 3, 14, 14 and 8, 22 questions were of regular CD type. Only there are 3 types of questions which are slightly different, but we have covered those kind of questions in the class also, or students are also familiar with those kind of questions, as those types of questions appeared in past exams also, right? But the level of difficulty was not that easy compared to the previous slots. So we found that the questions are, the figure looks very simple, but when you actually start tracing the logic, you don't get any logic for that. Okay, so if you look at out of 25 questions, I have categorized only 12 questions as a easy question, and 7 and 5, 5 were moderate question and 7 were difficult question. So number of difficult questions were higher than the number of moderate questions. Fine. So again, the strategy is the same thing, that you decide amount of time you want to give it for this section. Whichever the easier one you can crack in the one go, you just attempt those questions. Which you're going to take more than a minute, this better leave those questions and go ahead. But what are these 12 questions I'm categorized as easy questions? Actually, you could have solved that, each question of that, in less than a minute time. Fine. However, the only issue apart from that, a good number of questions of difficulty level, I found one more issue, that the interface was not so good. Because in particular in series question, what we do, we generally get the answers by eliminating the options. So there was lower half was fixed, lower half of the screen was fixed, and upper half you have to scroll down. So in series question, your question figures and answer figures were not visible in half of that upper screen. So the only question figures were visible. To get the answer figures, you have to scroll down. But when you look at those option figures, then question figures were not visible. So that was little bit irritating, because generally we have a habit of we generally see the question figure and answer figure together, and then we eliminate the option and get the answers faster. So little bit inconvenience was there for the students over there. Fine. Otherwise, in the terms of type of question, there was no surprise, as it was some 3 years back. Lot of new types of questions were asked. Fine. So the types of questions were simple. They were definitely difficult questions. You would have skipped that. You attempted easier questions first. And the last section, that is verbal ability and reading comprehension. Now in that section, students reported that their experience is not so good. Okay, in fact, there were one part is this RC part, and there was a vocab part. So two major categories, that's it. So there were six RC passages. And those RC passages, some of them were lengthy also. Not only the level of passages was higher, also the kind of questions asked on those passages were not straightforward. So many students reported that these were not a CET level passages. These are slightly CAT level passages. But as I said, you don't need to worry about that, because if it is difficult, it was difficult for everyone. So your cutoff might go slightly lower. Overall cutoff might go for slightly lower for this slot compared to the other slots. Fine. One part is RC part. Now, apart from that RC, in vocab parts also the students struggle, because almost half the questions were on vocab. So around 25 plus questions were on the vocab part. So synonyms, antonyms, fill in the blanks, all together were almost half the questions were based on the vocab part, and that also part was not so easy. So students reported that they found this the most difficult section among these four, because some reported Quant also difficult one, but those who prepared well for a Quant, they found Quant okay part. But most of the students reported that okay, VRC section was not so great, they found it difficult. So considering that part, if I compare the level of difficulty of these particular slot 3 is definitely higher than your slot 1 and 2 difficulty level. So cutoff might for this slot might be slightly lower, but will it be much lower as what I'm saying 130 or 140? I am a little doubtful. So I'm still say it could be 4 and 5 marks here and there. Fine. So that's from my side. Thank you.